a really big win. SB 1833, the House version passed almost unanimously on the floor, and we're waiting for the governor to sign it. The state designated cultural district bill is going to create corridors, commercial corridors in neighborhoods across the state to be able to preserve rich history, culture, and identity. This bill is going to ensure for the first time that we have legislation in place that's going to protect communities across the state that have been historically disinvested in or are combating gentrification. And we cannot be more excited about the ability to preserve communities, to pay honor to the people and that have helped build those places without having to worry about those communities being dismantled and people being removed from those communities. There's a couple of outcomes that can come from this bill. And I think it's super important for people to understand it, because this can mean your neighborhood. This can mean neighborhoods across the state, not just in the city of Chicago. We're talking about economic and workforce development. We're talking about fostering artistic and cultural enterprises. We're talking about having a recognizable commercial district that will attract tourists so that they can spend money in our communities and we can stir up that economic growth. We're talking about preserving and repurposing historic buildings. How many communities have we seen get historical buildings bulldozed because they do not have the resources nor the economic means to preserve and repurpose those buildings for the community residents that live within those places? We're talking about promoting a walkable and sustainable community with green technology. We're talking about urban agriculture, food justice, and preserving and increasing affordable housing. These are all the things that this bill can make possible. The Puerto Rican Agenda sat about a year and a half ago, really thinking about what this could mean in our community, what this could mean for a Puerto Rican community in Humboldt Park that has been gentrified for decades, really being able to create a commercial district that we will call Puerto Rico Town. But this can be every neighborhood that we want to be able to preserve and designate as a cultural district. And so we are super excited. We're due to meet with DCEO to really talk about resources that will be allocated to this legislation. There's going to be 15 total communities that will benefit from the first round of this legislation, 5 communities, 5 neighborhoods every year. We're super excited to sit with DCEO, really hash out the logistics and see what implementation looks like. If there's any questions, you can email me. And obviously you have a wonderful state senator here who is transparent and provides a platform for all answers to be questioned. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jesse. And there is contact information in the chat in case you want to catch up with Jesse and be a part of this particular movement. As Jesse referenced, there are major opportunities across our state, and it was really heartening to see our colleagues in both chambers across both aisles really understand what we're trying to accomplish with this particular bill, because it's never been done before in any other states. And this is our response, our answer to gentrification. This is us saying that we are here and we are not going anywhere. And what we are going to do is lift up our culture and our identity as the fuel and as the currency to ensure that we are going to, have generations to come who can be able to take care of, ensuring that our history is commemorated and that we have a present as well as a future. The next bill up that I want to call your attention to, and this one here, gosh, I definitely lost some sleep over this. And I have to say that it was certainly a interesting journey, learned quite a bit about the art of negotiation, although I don't want to, I better not say that phrase because it is associated with with some bad memories. Anyway, moving along, I want to introduce you to Teresa Ramos. who is representing Illinois Action for Children. She is the Vice President of Policy and Advocacy, and she was a major instrumental force in helping to craft the legislation as well as ensure its passage with House Bill 2878 to establish the Early Childhood Access Consortium for Equity. And so, Teresa, I am going to pin you so that you can get the spotlight, and we take it away.
Awesome. And a constituent. So I'm going to just wear that hat whenever I can. So a few things about House Bill 2878. One is this bill was really about supporting early childhood workers. These are child caregivers, educators who care for our babies as early as 6 weeks, right, till 5, till they're ready for school. And they are underpaid and they have limited access to higher education because we need them when we're working. So their ability to go to school during those hours is limited. And we're in the middle of not only a pandemic, but a crisis in shortage and having these workers. And so what this bill does is it says it really makes all of the four-year public universities and the community colleges join forces to guarantee that when students go through a community college and they've gotten their associates, they can go to a four-year and all of their classes count for credits. It's one of the strongest articulation agreements in the country as we kind of continue to work on it this summer. So there's less wasted time, less wasted money. It also brings everybody, all of these public universities and privates as well, into a consortium where they will start to plan for how to meet the needs of workers who might need to take classes in the evenings, on the weekends, online, in a mix of hybrid settings. So it brings everybody together to do that. It also sets very clear targets, and the senator was adamant about this. We need to know, what are we trying to accomplish in serving the incumbent workforce? So we know that there are about 28,000 teachers currently in the field that could be upskilled to either their associates or another credential level or their baccalaureate degree. This says, unless we come up with clearer targets, in the next 3 years, we have to serve 20% of those incumbent workers to get to their next degree level. So clear targets for 4 years, for 2 years, for all of us to work on, mandates participation, and then it sets an advisory council to this group that brings together formally early childhood providers, so community-based organizations, school districts, caregivers, home-based care, center-based care, into direct conversation with 2 years and 4 years to say, here's what we need, how are you producing it, here's where we can be flexible or not. There's just been a disconnect in that relationship between early childhood and higher ed, and this advisory committee will start to bridge some of that. And then the last thing is, we really went after funding for this initiative. We had tons of federal funding come in for childcare and early education. It did not come in for all of the other parts of the system, including higher education. And as a collective of community colleges, the senator, advocates like Asia that you're about to hear from in a minute, like all of our partners came together and said, we need to make sure that these dollars are going to serve the workforce. And so there will be things like free tuition, debt relief for folks who are already in the field and maybe owe some debt to an institution for transcripts, support for transportation and childcare, stipends, coaching and navigating, because just to get through the paperwork of going back into school and registering and trying to apply for scholarships can be sometimes a whole second job. And so we'll provide support for all of those pieces, even as it helps build a better, stronger system on the back end. So we are just thrilled for the senator's fierce leadership on this and her ability to kind of dive right into, negotiating a win for an industry that serves all of the other industries. And we look forward to continuing to work on this and keeping everybody accountable to their goals. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Teresa. We are going to move right along. I have another guest in the early childhood space who is another advocate representing an organization that is another early childhood powerhouse, and that is Start Early. And so the journey of this bill actually started off with me introducing a standalone bill, Senate Bill 1077, to basically make permanent telehealth for early intervention. And the next speaker is going to talk a little bit more in detail, but actually what happened is there was what we call an omnibus bill that was currently being negotiated with all of the various provisions around telehealth, because the pandemic afforded us the opportunity to really ensure that this is a modality that actually works. It opens up access, it creates opportunity for streamlining and effective use of time. Granted, it doesn't, completely replace in person, but it optimizes our ability to meet the health care and medical needs of communities. And so this telehealth bill, Senator Napoleon Harris was gracious enough to take the language from the bill that I had introduced and had crafted in collaboration with Start Early, and infuse it into this omnibus bill. And so I'm going to ask Asia Kennedy from Start Early to join us and kind of explain a little bit around that particular bill, as well as some additional information around early intervention.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate being here this evening. And I have to start off by, first of all, saying thank you to you, not only for just diving right in and working on behalf of the children and families of the state and in our communities, but also having the political acumen to kind of navigate the difficulties around a bill as big as this telehealth bill. As you just explained, HB 3308, which is the bill I'm here to talk about today, is a huge omnibus bill, just meaning that there's a variety of different moving components, all related to one subject, in this case, telehealth. Really, which we saw as a really efficient modality for receiving services for families in the early intervention program. Early intervention, we know, supports families with children aged 0 to 3 with intellectual, mobile, developmental, there's opportunities for those children to be further supported in their developmental progress. And so it's speech therapy, it's language therapy. It's if a baby's not crawling by an age milestone, you can have someone come into your house, or now via telehealth, support your child's development. We appreciated the opportunity to work with the senator on this, because we do know that the executive order was going to expire that allowed for telehealth to be initiated for early intervention. And when that expires, what we saw and what we heard is that families needed this service. They benefited from this service. It was delivered in a way that was the least restrictive for families. And we saw an increase in family engagement. A family has to sit there and hold their child at the computer and learn along with their baby. And so the bill has passed. There are a bunch of provisions in the bill that are not related to early intervention, but this early intervention piece does also include some portions of payment parity for our providers. It has not yet been signed, but we are looking forward to it being sent to the governor's office for his signature. And we don't anticipate that there are going to be any challenges with his signature. So again, thank you, Senator, for all of your support and your effort in this work.
Thank you, Asia. Appreciate it. Okay, on to the next bill that we are going to feature, and this is House Bill 2614. I also had the pleasure of working with Representative Evadina Delgado, who actually neighbors the 20th district, and obviously had the pleasure of working with the Northwest Side Housing Center. And I'm pleased to have Jimmy Thomas with me to explain this particular bill, and also to share an additional resource with respect to mortgage and rental assistance. So Jimmy, take it away. I actually just asked you to unmute. There we go.
I was gonna say, I think Ernie is going to speak first on the bill, and then I'll come in with rental assistance.
Fabulous. Let me then pin him. There he is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Senator. First, and I do want to commend both you and Representative Delgado because you both were champions on this bill. 2614 we're talking about the Northwest Assurance Home Equity Assurance Program. Now, I don't know how many people know that many of you are in it. It takes in 9 wards, the 29th, the 30th, the 31st, the 36th, the 37th, the 38th, the 39th, the 41st, and the 45th ward. So if you're in any of those wards, you probably are in the Northwest Assurance Equity Program. If you have an appraisal for $150, you will never lose the value of your home. It was started in 1988. If you look at your tax bill, you will find that you are probably charged anywhere from $1.90 to $2 to $2.25 a year to be in this program. And it now has a home equity loan program where you can get a home improvement loan for 0% for 5,000 to 10,000. 10,000 to 20,000 is 2%. So it's a great program that you're in. What Senator Zaya and Representative Delgado did for this is we have 52,000 people who are delinquent in their taxes. And we don't know how many of them are in these 9 wards, but we know that you can easily say a couple thousand. And what it will do is we'll be able to help these people with a 0% interest loan. And how is that done? Northwest Assurance Equity Program will take care of that interest rate, and then you will pay 0%, so you'll just be paying back on the loan. This is really important because not only are 52,000 people delinquent, 23,000 of them are only $1,000 delinquent. Many of them are seniors. So you will have help. It's ready to be, it will be signed by the governor. Once it's signed by the governor, it will be out there at Northwest Assurance Program. Right now, they are working with the banks to adjust what that interest rate that they're paying will take or do. So right now, I'm going to turn it over. I've given you enough information. There should be in the chat their phone number, and if it's not, I'll put it there so you can contact Northwest Assurance Program. I'm going to hand it over to our rental counselor, Jimmy Thomas, to let you know about the rental assistance. Jimmy?
Thank you, Ernie. Hi, everyone. Hola. Buenas noches. I am the rental counselor at the Northwest Side Housing Center /CDC. And the most important thing you can take from me speaking is that if you are in need of rental assistance and you are a landlord or a tenant, you can reach out to me. There are many different programs on the city level and the state level, and I deal with this every day, and it's confusing even to me. So I don't want to try and explain all the programs to you, but generally speaking, if you are struggling to pay your rent and you are either behind on rent or worried about being behind on rent moving forward, and you lost income in some form from COVID-19, that could have been a loss of job, that could have been reduced hours, it could have meant even that you had to take a week off because you were sick, any sort of loss of income or increase in expenses, and you will qualify for rental assistance. This is probably the only time any nonprofit will ever say this. We have lots of money. So there's lots of financial assistance for people right now, but you do have to apply. And so I will put my contact information in the chat. And like I said, the most important, sorry, I got muted. Reach out to me if you have any questions or are interested in signing up, and we can get you set up with the city program or the state program, depending. You generally need both the landlord and the tenant to apply. So if you're a tenant and you're thinking about this, a good first step would be to talk to your landlord today. Ask them if they'll help fill out the application. And there are a number of requirements and you have to provide documentation, but I, along with my coworkers, can help you fill out the application and get the funding. So if you're, like I said, if you're in need at all of rental assistance or utility assistance, including internet, so if you're behind on your electricity bill or your gas bill, or worried about being behind on them in the future, then you should definitely apply for this fund. We are available to help in both English and in Spanish. You do need to live where you owe the money. So if for some reason you still owe money on a place that you moved out of in the past year, you won't qualify for that. And also, this only covers rent from June 2020, so a year ago, June, into the future. So if you owe back rent from February of last year or even further, it won't cover that. But it's a pretty broad program. We have a lot of money, and we're definitely willing and able to help fill out the application with you. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jimmy. Next, we're going to talk about the forbearance program through the CARES Act. And homeowners with federally backed mortgages can put their loans into forbearance for 6 months to a year. Unfortunately, this deadline is going to end at the end of this month, June 30th. So Maggie, I don't know if you have some of the things I sent you, but if you don't, I'll just go through them anyway. First, contact your mortgage service and find out if they are in the program. And you can email and visit their website and make sure that they are in the program. Once they are, you might be able to negotiate with them. If you want, you can also go to a HUD certified agency, and we are one. I'm going to put our number in there. I'm going to put my number in there after I'm done talking. And what we can do is you'll have to do an intake package with us. So you call us up, do an intake package, it'll get to a counselor. Counselor will call you and start negotiating with your bank. And if you do this before the 30th, it'll still be eligible, because once it's started, it will go until fruition, until you can make sure that you get this. What happens is after the forbearance is finished after 6 months or a year, it'll be then recapitalized through a modification, kind of like the HEMP program was in 2009, or it'll be put at the end of the loan as a non-interest bearing balloon payment. So, and reverse mortgage borrowers, as well as borrowers who are already behind on their mortgage or even in foreclosure, can still register for this. So it's important because time is short. So you can call us at 773-283-3888, or you can get us at our website. I don't know if Jimmy put our website in. I think he did. If he didn't, I'll put it in, and that is www.nwshc.org, Northwest Side Housing Center.org. And you can actually do an intake online, and it'll get to the counselor, and that might expedite to make sure that you can get into this program. All right, and I think we are on time. Yes, we are. Actually, we are. Senator, I'll give that back to you, and thank you very much for giving us the time to explain some of the services that we do. And thank you again for all that you have done.
All right, thank you, Ernie, and appreciate all the work that you all are doing. And I really appreciate everyone who has been able to join us today. This is, obviously a handful of the bills I wanted to kind of highlight, and also to, again, emphasize that, if you have ideas around policy, if you want to address something at the state level, please know that there is an opportunity for us to work together with that. In fact, we have roundtables that we host and that cover 5 kind of broad areas: education, housing, health, small businesses / workforce, and violence prevention. And I'm grateful that I have individuals who have agreed to co-chair these roundtables, but what I'm looking particularly for are individuals who can also serve on the roundtables, lend your experience. If you live or work within the district, there is an opportunity and obviously a seat for you to be at the table. So you can help us design a people's legislative agenda for the 20th legislative district. And there is actually, I'm going to ask Maggie if she can put in the chat as well, the interest form for the roundtable, so that we can ensure that if folks are interested in joining, we meet 3 times a year minimally. That's at the beginning of session. There's an after action review at the end of session. In fact, our roundtables are going to convene next week. We'll put some information out so that you have that in as well, so that we can talk about what worked, what didn't in the legislative session, and what we may need to start looking ahead. And we convene before the veto session, which means we go back to Springfield in October to essentially address any bills. For example, should the governor decide to veto any of the bills that we send to his desk, it's an opportunity for our chambers to override those vetoes. But there also could be some opportunity to finish up some loose ends. There's pieces of legislation that we didn't quite get over the finish line that we might be able to move a little bit closer in veto session. Veto session, by the way, is going to be the week of October 19th and the week of October 26th. It usually takes place for 2 weeks, either in October or November. It's a little bit earlier this year. And we will not be back for our regular session until January. So I just want, I try to help you all understand the various processes and the schedules, obviously to invite your participation. So I'm going to move us along, and I'm going to share my screen so that you can kind of get a sense of, there we go. And I'm going to go right here. And let me get into presentation mode. All right. So as you see, here's a complete listing of the bills that we championed, that either came out of stakeholder feedback or constituents. And the first 4 are what was covered today. I didn't cover, obviously, the other 5 so that we could have some time to kind of go over some other legislative highlights, but wanted to just give you a sense of the breadth and the depth of what we covered. House Bill 26 is the Equitable Online Educational Platforms Act. And so essentially what that does is there are universal World Wide Web guidelines for ensuring that online educational platforms meet the needs of all of our learners. Whether you have a speech delay, whether you have auditory challenges, whether you have visual challenges, the point is that there's certain things, and I think we learned quite a bit this past year about learning online and how we need to ensure that it is universally acceptable. And so this requires school districts to only partner with third-party vendors who meet these guidelines that are accepted across the country. House Bill 51 is a technical bill. It removes Chicago from this carve-out that was given to Chicago back in the day with respect to smoke detectors in public facilities. Now they're back in it and they can comply with this. House Bill 2438 is National Board Teacher Certification reporting on the school report cards. We now on our school report cards can show how many teachers have this particular certification, which is additional clock hours, additional practice and expertise in teaching. The research shows that teachers who go through this process are actually able to support students and produce additional academic achievement, positive academic achievement, that is. And on the report card, we're not only showing the number of teachers per school district that have this certification, but we are disaggregating by race ethnicity, because you all know how I do. I want to make sure that we are really clear about who is accessing these additional opportunities and how we can remove those particular barriers. And it really brings together the concept of excellence as well as equity. And so ensuring that, our teachers are meeting higher standards of excellence, but we're not limiting those to those who traditionally have dominated the teaching workforce. We want to ensure that teachers reflect the identities of the students that they're serving, and they also have the support to continue to master their craft, because it is science, y'all. It's not only magic and it's social work and it's all that, but it is science what teachers do. And we have to certainly give it up to the teachers this year, because it has been one like no other. Senate Bill 2043 is the Illinois State Board of Education cleanup bill. This is a bill that the State Board of Education introduces every single year to kind of clean up some technical language. There might be commissions and task forces that expire. There might be language that's no longer used. There might be a bill that has sunset, and therefore you got to kind of clean up the technical language so you can be in compliance with current statutes. So that bill, and that bill actually will allow the delay of our school report cards, because we had such a doozy of a year, so that we can make sure we have it fully populated, so we can now continue to monitor the progress that our school districts are making. And then House Bill 3595 is the Department of Children and Family Services out-of-state monitoring. So apparently if a youth or child in care is actually placed out of state, DCFS did not have the ability to monitor the conditions, the relationship, the circumstances that these young children and older young people are in, and making sure that we are looking after all the children in our care. So those were the bills. I also had some resolutions, and resolutions are kind of symbolic, but they also can communicate a little bit of what we call legislative intent. So these are, they don't have implications for law, but they're more of like proclamations. They're us opening the conversation. You all may remember from our previous town halls, I was really adamant that we had no business as a state to be administering these state assessments for, 3rd through 12th graders. While the state did achieve flexibility as a result of a waiver that was submitted, or a petition for a waiver, the Department of Education did not grant a full waiver. So we did have to proceed with administering the assessments, albeit there's some, flexibility. There may be administration of assessments in the fall. They may have paced it out towards the end of the year. There are different types of accommodations that have been made. And of course, the accountability piece, the state is not going to get dinged on. Either way, I thought it was really important that we stand with the 90% of school districts and superintendents that had said, we can't do this, y'all. But more to come on that. There's going to be some more assessment conversations, and I'm pleased to partner with various groups around, really helping to unpack our, what we need to be looking at with respect to assessments as we go, as we now kind of turn the corner, hopefully, on COVID-19 and really start to do the disciplined and necessary work of reimagining our education system. Also introduced a resolution on agricultural student loan forgiveness. I didn't know this. 75% of our state is farmland, and we have an aging farm population that is about to turn over about 2/3 of our farms in the next 25 years. We have very minimal young farmers coming on deck. And when you think about the prospect of studying agriculture and perhaps taking up a farm, it's a huge risk. And, we know there's over $1.9 trillion in student loan debt. And so that's a hard thing to kind of swallow, especially if this is something in your family that's handed down from generation to generation. And so what this resolution is petitioning the Department of Education to see agriculture, to see farmers as public servants. We wouldn't be anything without our food chain. And to see the pursuit of this as a career, as an application of a public service. And so we are asking the Department of Education to see this area in the public student loan forgiveness program. We also adopted a proclamation to claim Illinois a healing-centered state. We've obviously had a lot of discussions in the most recent year and a half around trauma and what we need to be doing to be deliberate about this. And this particular resolution is looking to ensure that we anchor ourselves in this concept of being healing-centered, that we organize our agencies to be interconnected and to not work in silos, that we lead with healing, and that we really stop inflicting harm and violence through our institutions. The second to last resolution is the elimination of restraint and seclusion with child serving agencies. You all may recall there was a huge cover story a couple years ago with the Tribune about the use of restraint and seclusion with children in schools. And so what this is encouraging is that agencies find a way to not use this. We did have a bill that actually created a pathway for us to have a permanent elimination. But again, this is an important declaration as a state that we move towards this direction. And then, of course, the commemoration of the Week of the Young Child, which is in April. It's a week that brings out awareness around early childhood and the importance of supporting young child development, but also the workforce behind it. And that's why, the bill that Teresa Ramos was explaining was incredibly important. So those are the legislative pieces. I wanted to make sure that folks had a sense of, and I also, please, as I go through these next few slides, I wanted you all to understand the budget and actually, I'm seeing that my slides are hidden here. So let me go back and clean this up. I want to give you some budget highlights. And if there are questions, please put them in the chat on Zoom or in the Facebook chat so that we can respond to those questions. But give me one moment, please, while I unhide these slides here. The way that we work with our particular. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to get us back on the. There we go. And all right, got to actually bring this up a touch. All right, so here we are. I wanted to, this was a really interesting budget year. We were bracing ourselves for the worst, but luckily through the American Rescue Plan, there was an infusion of dollars. And essentially in this budget, we have only appropriated 1/3 of the total amount. So there's going to be more infusions to come. But really wanted to, be responsible with the federal dollars, not only so that we can balance the budget, but ultimately so we can be on a path towards recovery. Some of the highlights that I think you all should know that obviously, I'm knee deep in is the, with respect to the $350 million that we have provided in additional funding for Illinois public schools to fund our evidence-based funding formula. We also made sure that our higher education institutions were whole and that we invest in need-based financial aid and increase in the MAP grant by $28 million. We wanted to ensure that we set ourselves up so we could prevent any future funding cuts. And we are basically investing $1.3 billion with a B dollars in direct support from federal government. Some of that actually in the bill that Teresa Ramos spoke to, $110 million is going to go specifically for that early childhood higher education consortium. We also redirected money to support job creators, which we know are our small businesses. So we wanted to make sure that we were supporting the economic heartbeat of our country, and that is our small businesses. We made our full statutorily required pension payment. We paid back a loan early that we took last year during the pandemic. So that we can not have to pay tens of millions of dollars in interest. And ultimately, as I said, this puts us on a course for recovery. With respect, I'm going to actually stop sharing here because I want to just give you all a little bit of the highlights in terms of some of the legislative pieces that I think you should be aware of. The first, which I know many of us were definitely looking very closely, and of course I was a huge supporter, is the elected representative school board in Chicago. We were successful in passing a pathway to an elected representative school board. I know that this was not what we wanted. We wanted to have an elected representative school board immediately, but we have a couple steps to take. And one of those steps is to have a hybrid model. We still preserve the number of school board members in Chicago. It will be 21. It'll be 20 members and then one at-large member that will serve as the president. Now, how the hybrid is going to work, there's going to be an election in 2024. The General Assembly is going to draw out 10 districts in which 10 individuals will run, or actually there'll be 10 seats, so probably more than 10 individuals running. And essentially, they will serve as the elected portion of that board starting in 2025. Then there will be 10 appointed members plus one appointed president, so a total of 11 appointed members by the mayor, but there will be advice and consent of the city council, meaning that the city council, our 50 aldermen, have to approve the 11 members that the mayor is going to be appointing. There also will be a moratorium on school closings until we have a fully elected school board. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And then there will also be an advisory group for parents and family members who are undocumented to ensure that we are incorporating their priorities and needs into the agenda of the board, if you will. There will also be a study done to look at the financial implications of this change and the entanglements involved with it, so that we can make sure that we are setting this elected representative school board up for success. And then lastly, in 2026, there's going to be an election for the entire, the other 10 members that were appointed plus the president in 2026, so that in 2027 we will have a fully elected school board. The other pieces that I want to make mention of, because there was a lot of discussion around this and concern around disenfranchising undocumented parents who wouldn't be able to vote because of their immigration status. And we have a trailer bill for that. And in fact, we just had a Senate hearing last Friday for Senate Bill 1565. I want you all to pay close attention to this one, because what this bill is going to do is not only enfranchise parents of Chicago who are undocumented, but across the entire state. We are trying to ensure that this is a system-wide solution. We have families of mixed status across our entire state, and they should be enfranchised. So that's what this particular bill is seeking to do, is to go through a process. So we had our first hearing on Friday, and we had a robust discussion with those that came to give us feedback on this particular proposal. This bill is being sponsored or introduced by Senator Celina Villanueva. And we will continue to have some discussions so that we can get this right in time for the first election. So I wanted to make sure folks were fully aware of that. We also passed a bill, House Bill 2621. It's an affordable housing omnibus bill. This bill is super exciting because it creates a COVID-19 affordable housing grant program. And it is going to fund the development of up to 3,500 affordable rental homes and apartments by December 31st, 2024. It's going to incentivize developers with tax credits, as well as homeowners who have rental properties. And there is going to be roughly about $100 million going into this grant program every single year for the next 3 years. So this is a huge, huge win. We had a ethics bill that was passed that really started to make very clear some guardrails around lobbying activities of former General former General Assembly members or individuals who work in the executive branch, and having stronger reporting on conflicts of interest and obviously avoiding those. Let me see. Let me check, as I wanted to make sure. I was trying to make sure I was checking on this. If you all have any questions in terms of anything that I have laid out for you, I want to, make sure that I have an opportunity to answer your questions, and I'm not seeing anything. And Maggie, correct me if I'm wrong, and just drop it into the Q&A if there are any additional questions that folks have as I'm kind of going through some of these particular pieces. So I am going to stop right there because I want to make sure that we have covered, let me see, we talked about the telehealth. There is a Senate Bill 104. This was our liquor act, and that was actually some folks may know this as the being able to purchase a cocktail to go. So that's permanently, semi-permanent until 2024. The cocktails to go, we have kept that in place until January 3rd, 2024. There's also credit card payments that can go to a distributor. I guess retailers can make purchases of alcohol from distributors using a credit card. They only had permitted checks in the past. Who does that anymore? And then you all may have heard of the shot and beer COVID-19 vaccination promotions. I want to, make sure that you all are aware of that. And Anthony, I see that you asked the question, how many homes are going to be created by that affordable housing omnibus? So it's a combination of homes and apartments, 3,500 over those 3 years. So we definitely need to monitor that and make sure that we get them coming towards the 20th legislative district. So back to the shot and the beer, you all may have heard of this. Basically, if you provide a proof of a COVID vaccine, you can get a cocktail or a beer as a part of a promotion. And there's some specifications around that. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew that. You all may know about the lottery. There's now a lottery. If you if you are vaccinated, you can be entered into win a lottery that the pot is $7 million. And I believe there's like 4 $1 million prizes, and then the rest are like $100,000 prizes. There's also a lottery for college students to get tuition. So I want to make sure you all know that. There's an elections bill that we passed. We are going to be moving the primaries from March to June 28th. And so that is going to shift. I mean, the generals will still be in November of 2022, but we're moving the primary elections from March to June 28th. And therefore, the petition period will change from the fall to January through March. And then there is also a cannabis cleanup bill. You all may have remembered that we had some problems with respect to that. And so we wanted to expand access for social equity applicants. And so those individuals who have applied for the cannabis licenses and reside in what we call the disproportionately impacted areas. These are areas where there's like sort of a data curation and matrix that looks at the level of poverty experienced by individuals there, the rates of arrest and conviction with respect to cannabis. And it basically creates this kind of applicant pool that fits within these particular criteria. And so there are 75 social equity licenses that were supposed to go out in 2020 through a lottery system. And of those thousands of applications that were submitted, a few hundred received perfect scores, making them eligible to now go into this lottery. And there is going to be an opportunity for those applicants they're giving applicants a chance to amend applications to address scoring issues, if there were scoring issues, and expand the eligibility pool. So that's the background, but what this particular bill is trying to do, so in addition to that, the 75 license lottery, 2 new lotteries are being established that open up new opportunities for our social equity applicants for a total of 185 social equity licenses, 55 license lottery for people who have a score, or for applications who have a score 85% or higher, and meets the definition of a social equity applicant, and then 55 license lottery applications that'll win with a score of over 85 or higher and meets the definition of a social equity applicant, or promises that more than half of their employees will meet the definition of a social equity applicant. So we're expanding the lottery. You know, there's going to be a lottery to issue 5 additional medical cannabis dispensaries licenses to a new pool of applicants that specifically meet that criteria of the social equity applicant. We have some disclosure statements with greater transparency in the cannabis industry. There's going to be a market study that's conducted of the medical cannabis industry. Basically, I think that's pretty much it. There's some very technical changes, and we also made some changes to the R3 program with respect to the composition of the board. We felt it was really important to ensure that we had equitable representation, particularly in the Latino community, particularly of those who are affected. We also felt it was important to kind of ensure that we had active participation of board members throughout the process. So I am going to stop right there, because I'm telling you, it was a whirlwind of a legislative session. I want to thank everyone for all of your feedback throughout this session. I want to continue to invite you to be in touch and to not be a stranger, and to aid and assist and partner with me for developing solutions from the ground up. This is what democracy looks like. It's active, it's messy, it's complicated, but it's necessary that it be participatory. And so I want to do my best to create avenues and pathways. I'd love to hear your ideas around that. Be on the lookout. I've talked about a youth council that I want to launch in the fall. So I will be reaching out to folks, asking you to help spread the word about the youth council, that we've got some stipends for young people to also inform this legislative agenda, and also help me launch a popular education campaign about government, to demystify it, for us to reclaim it and understand that we have every right to be involved at every single level. And so I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it, because it's a gorgeous summer evening. Please stay in touch. Please check us out on the website and on social, and I'm open to your ideas, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. We're going to be opening up our office to the public. Target date is mid-July for an open house, so be on the lookout to stop by. We'd love to meet you in person, and have a great rest of your evening. I'd like to lastly actually thank the whole team and all of the folks that joined us tonight. I think it's incredibly important, again, that we do this collaborative work. I am truly honored to work alongside individuals from various corners of this district and beyond to ensure that government works for us. I'm also very appreciative of the support from the Senate Dems caucus. We've got Brandy, and we've got Maggie on the line, and of course my amazing team here in the 20th district with Sonia and April, and also in Springfield, Rosa, who makes the best café con leche on earth, representing Puerto Ricans to the max. The address of my office is 3140 West Montrose. So we're right by Montrose and Kedzie. And we will, like I said, when we have our open house, we'll be publishing the hours that will be open. And I just definitely look forward to meeting you. So thank you all. Have a good evening and take care.